On our June tour of the interior of Alaska in 2015, we spent the summer solstice in Fairbanks. Before departing for Denali on the 22nd, our group toured a defunct mining operation called Dredge 8, now a tourist destination.
Morning of the 22nd June 2015, we're in the Westmark Hotel in Fairbanks, and the power's just gone off. No explanation yet.
It's pretty good time.
We're supposed to go on a gold dredge this morning.
Taking their cue from the Disneyland model, the concessionaires at Dredge 8 puts their guests on a train which passes by staged demonstrations.
And now we take a train ride.
Come on, people. Because you're mine, I walk the line. Because you're mine, I walk the line.
Like most of these tourist concessions,
Good morning,
it's a
everybody.
very slick operation.
Yeah, it is.
How do you like 24 hours of daylight? Is that all right?
Yeah.
We're getting nervous now, all us locals. You want to know why?
Why?
We're starting to lose 3 minutes a day.
The train routes us past demonstrations that chronicle the development of gold mining technology.
Now, Pizarro had his act together. He constructed what was called a rocker box, a portable little sluice box set up on the creek bank near his campsite, literally rocking the box back and forth as a means to separate the larger stones from the smaller pieces of gold.
The next exhibit shows underground mining.
And another 2 to 4 men up top stockpiling the material, keeping the fires burning, the equipment running, and so forth. Now, it's important to point out to everybody so you understand that the placer and drift miners of that era would only dig in the winter time. That's for safety purposes. Again, we're talking about dealing with frozen permafrost here. If it's allowed to warm up and thaw out, it essentially just turns into a bunch of mud.
Our guide narrates a demonstration of buckets carrying gravel from the mine.
All the way up to that pole, called the gin pole, where the buckets would catch, swivel, stretch out, and dump their load. Then come coasting back down empty to bang into these logs here and be reset for the next load. Just about something anyway. You get the picture like that.
More efficient methods of extracting ore require giant dredges to peel away overburden from the ore-bearing gravel beneath. Thawing the overburden required massive amounts of water under massive amounts of pressure.
Placer mines require a great deal of running water, and the dredges were the epitome of that. Gold Dredge 8 by itself consumed 9,000 gallons of water a minute. 9,000 gallons of water a minute, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 220 some days of their mining season meant there was no way they could rely on some pitiful little creek or stream for that kind of water supply. So what the FE company decided to do was hire hundreds of miners to take up their pickaxes, their shovels, their saws, and their mules, and had them bushwhack their way to the tops of these hills over here, the distant north, the left of you, and had them proceed to dig, largely by hand, a giant trench that varied in width anywhere from 4 feet wide to 10 feet wide, and varied from 4 feet deep to 10 feet deep, largely by hand, for 90 miles. This giant trench became known as the famous Davison Ditch, and it wound its way through the tops of those hills over there just as far as you could see. It was the biggest engineering feat of its day. As they piped that water downhill, they would use pipes that got smaller and smaller and smaller, such that by the time the water got down here to ground level and was shot from these 3-inch hydraulic giants or water cannons, there was an incredible amount of pressure built up behind these cannons, to the tune of about 120 pounds per square inch. You know, One of these days, I'm going to have this thing functional online. Anybody here ever experienced the joy of pounding fence posts in the ground before? I'll give you a sense of what that was like and the monotony of it. Each man would have a 26-pound weight and pick it up and pound it down all day long. 11-hour shifts. Now meanwhile, there's water going through these pipes here. You see all this plumbing, the waterworks here? That's all water from that Davison ditch. They would gurgle 40-degree water down through these pipes into that frozen gravel to help expedite the thawing process of it all. Now this component of the operation required a full 1.5 to 3 years in advance just for them to strip off all the organic overburden, thaw out all this gravel to prepare the ground for the dredge to come along and dig it all up.
Now, here's the dredge itself. It floats out a pond that it itself had excavated. Our guide introduces us to the docent on the barge in his best Disneyland announcer tone of voice.
Yukon, good morning. I've got a great Chattanooga train here. Take it away.
Thanks, Tim. Well, howdy.
Howdy.
Darn good to have you here in camp. I am Yukon Yonda. That's a nickname I picked up in this country decades ago.
Yukon begins her description of the barge by starting with the bucket line at the head of the barge, which worked
Much like a chainsaw. You know how a chainsaw will cut down into wood. This worked in reverse. It cut up from the bedrock through the gravel. The line of buckets you see on the very top of it, when this was in full operation, originally there were 64 buckets that completely encompassed that digging arm. The bucket line moved at a rate of 22 buckets a minute. They weighed 1,500 pounds empty and when filled carried 6 cubic feet of gold-bearing gravel. When a bucket would get up to the very top of the digging arm, it would dump into what's called a hopper. That's shaped kind of like a chute, and above that area was a spray bar, so they would use the water to efficiently move that gold-bearing gravel out of the hopper and into the trommel. If you haven't seen a trommel before, picture the inside tub in one of those old washing machines, the one with all the holes in it, but laying on its side and constantly rotating in a flow of water. In the rotation of the trommel, the flow of water, and the flow of the pay dirt, the first thing that happened is the larger gravels would work their way down towards that tilted end of the trommel and automatically be fed onto a conveyor belt. That conveyor belt is housed in what's called the stacking arm. At the far end of the dredge, you can see it sticking up towards the sky. Gravels would travel up the conveyor belt, be spit out behind the dredge in what we miners call tailings, which simply means washed rock. The ongoing rotation, flow of hay and flow of water, then started to size out the fine sands, the smaller gravels, and the fine gold, concentrating it down to the bottom of the trommel.
Now we step backward in time to the very earliest forms of gold mining, patting.
Fill your pan with water. Now you got your pan filled with water, you do two things. You start shaking it side to side and tilting it away from you. So all of your pay dirt slides to the very front of the pan. This is where you want to keep your pay pile all through your panning process. What you're doing, well, first of all, gold is almost 20 times heavier than water. So when you're shaking this pan side to side at this angle, you're putting the gold right here in what is the deepest part of the pan. That's why you want to always have it tilted away from you. Less chance of washing it out. Now, shaking it brings the lighter sands and gravels to the surface, so you stop shaking, and this is just as easy. Pour the water out. Hold the angle the water left the pan, dip into the water trough, and lift up. 2 or 3 times, you'll see the top light layer start to slip. You'll also see larger gravels that you've shaken to the surface, so with water in your pan, drag those back towards you, rinse them in the pan, and then sweep them out, or throw them in your neighbor's pan, then they're out of yours. You're shaking it again, lots of water in the pan, shaking it side to side so you can see it moving or hear it moving. Tilting it away from you. Remember to do that. You want to secure the gold in that deepest part of the pan we pointed out. You bring in another layer to the surface, so stop shaking, pour the water out, hold the angle the water left the pan, and dip and lift 2 or 3 times. Take a few layers off. It is layer after layer until the very last thing in your pan is going to be that gold. And we're almost there. Imagine you want to see some at this point. So we'll stop shaking, pour the water out, hold the angle the water left the pan, and dip and lift a little bit at a time. When you get it down to what I call a healthy tablespoon, you change how you move your water, and this is just as easy. Roll the water up over the remaining pay pile and let that settle down. And then back the other direction. No need to blast the water. You're just lifting the sands off the existing gold that's there. And I'm seeing color. I love this stuff. Just work your water up and over the exposed gold to get the silicates or the sands down off of it. Then rinse that sand out of the pan, and there you have it. Nice, clean gold. If you would give this crew a nice round of applause for their talent and their expertise.
As we round the back of the dredge, under the stacking arm, we approach tourist attraction on a scale worthy of Walt Disney World in both scope and organization.
So as we round this last corner here, arriving into camp, you'll see some of the crew coming out here to greet you.
This is a massive operation. It's the organization and planning, not the gold, that's amazing here. Hey, Chief.
What?
Go ahead and pan. How are you doing?
Well, I'm getting a lot of heavy stuff at the top.
Show me your gold, Chief.
Just a minute, David,
show
not
me your
yet.
gold.
No.
I saw a few flecks earlier.
Yeah, no, I did too. Well.
Now we might have a little bit more in there.
I think so. I see it. That's
We're
my
gonna tap
gold.
it on our finger, it
A
sticks to
pan
our
for
finger
gold.
tap.
You've got
Okay,
some
don't
use
worry.
too.
I don't know. We'll
I
see.
see it. Yeah.
Okay, here's what it looks like. Little flecks. Here's a finger for scale.
Enough to pay for the trip.
You can buy one of these pokes, little bag of gravel, for $10. They figure that's about the average haul. One of the attendants told me that the greatest yield from one of these bags he ever heard of was about $213 worth of gold. But other bags might yield nothing. Now we're going in to have it weighed. Take it to the assayer's office. Okay, how much gold is that, Chief?
$31 worth. $31 worth.
Good for you. Of course, we both
For
contributed.
both of us.
We
Both
both
of us.
contributed. All right, we're inside this dredge number 8 now, so we're going to go around in here and look at all the dusty, rusty old equipment. There's abundance of that.
There is.
This represents the latest in 1928 technology. All of this structure is on a raft, a barge that was made in Pittsburgh by the U.S. Steel, taken apart to a train to San Francisco, and shipped north, trained again. I should say disassembled, trained north to Alaska, reassembled, disassembled, put on a train, taken up here to Fairbanks, and finally reassembled.
So this is the top deck of the dredger. Amazing.
Well, this is quite evidently some kind of control room. Okay, so we missed the train, and one of the employees drove us here in a van so that we arrived before the train arrived with our contingent. And here they come.